Hello everybody and welcome back to Crafts by the Bow. Today I'm going to use one of the new sets from the annual catalogue that's called Birds and Branches. And a lot of people have bought this and said, oh, it will be great for spring and new beginnings and babies. But I'm going to use it for my wedding anniversary card. And it comes with photopolymer stamps and a set of beautiful dies. Now the dies, I think a lot of them are going to be the kind of things that we use with lots of different stamp sets. Just with the leaves, this piece here that, oh, it's stuck on, sorry. This piece that cuts out a beautiful pattern down the side of your card. It doesn't have to go with this set at all. And I'm going to try and make some of my Christmas cards for the UK with them. Because in the UK, the robins are not like the robins here that we have in North America. They're much smaller birds with a much brighter red breast. And I'm going to make this one with a little red breast and make it into my Christmas cards. Now to start with, I was going to make a large pop-up card, but then I received some DSP, and it's one of the autumn DSPs. Let's see what it's called. The Gilded Autumn Speciality Paper. It goes with Cajun Craze, Crumb Cake, Early Espresso, Mint Macaron and Berry Vanilla. And I really fell in love with this sheet. I don't know if you can see, it just has like a coppery sheen. And because our wedding anniversary is a coral wedding anniversary, I decided that that Mint Macaron would go really nicely with our Calypso coral card. That was the only card and ink I had that was a coral colour. So for those of you who follow the traditional wedding anniversaries, 35 years is coral. But I think for modern times, it can also be jade. But we go with the old-fashioned stuff because I'm old and I'm old-fashioned, and so I'm using coral. And I'm making a really simple Z-fold card. It's literally just one piece of card folded over with the front folded back on itself. But if you go on over to the blog, I've got all the sizes and dimensionals. You don't have to try and remember it. And then I've cut a 4-inch strip from my DSP and I cut it across the top because I want all my pieces to match up. If you've got a pattern that it doesn't matter if it matches or not, that's fine. But because when my pieces go together and my card is opened, you will be able to see like the flow of the pattern. I wanted them all to be the same. So I'm just going to attach that, and I'll find my Tombow glue for this. And let's pop these on. And although you won't see all of this DSP from the outside, when my husband opens the card, that's when he'll see the rest of it. Okay, so we'll just pop that on. It'll have just a little border all the way around. It's a really very, very pretty DSP. I love when they do the speciality papers and they've got the embossing and either special vellum pieces or the glitter pieces. But this, I just loved how the copper looked. Okay, so that's the base of our card, all done. And next we're going to make the front. And I've used this circle die from the Birds and Branches to be one of my main focuses with the little birds. And I've already cut it out on a piece of soft suede, and you see how you get these little branches and leaves. So pretty. And I've got a larger piece of my Calypso coral, and then I've got a plain white square. So let's pop that on as well. And I've only got a tiny little border on this. I only wanted to see a little bit of the coral colour. Okay, and then I'm going to pop this one on as well. And I want to make it so that this gap here is going to be at the right hand side. And all I did when I was cutting this out, I orientated the die so that this piece with no leaves was at that top right. And that's just because I want to put a sentiment there. So I needed it to sort of peep through. But I didn't want my sentiment in the middle or anything. I just want a little banner sentiment. Okay, so there's that piece. And it's going to attach to here, but I'm not going to attach it until I've got my inside piece finished. And for that, all I did was cut another square of the Calypso Coral and a piece of Whisper White. And you could stamp another sentiment on here, or an image, but I wanted to put in some numbers. I wanted to put the 35 in, and this is a retired set of numbers. It's from our big alphabet dies. I just don't have the new playful dies out yet. They haven't arrived, so I'm using my old ones. And I just want this to have the 3 and the 5 up at the top, and it will still give me a little space to write. Make sure that's on straight and sort of vaguely in the middle. There we go. Okay. If you wanted more space to write, you could always put another piece of Whisper White on the back. And I'm going to make it so that this is, it looks that it's, you know, in the middle, left to right, but I'm not going to squash it down yet, because I want to check that when this is closed, this piece will cover it up. And yes, it will. Okay. Now I've got little bits of fluff on there. Let's just get those off. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to attach this piece. And you could attach it with tear and tape or Stampin' Seal. I'm just going to put a little bit of my Tombow on, remembering that I only want this left-hand side. So I'm not putting too much on. So I know this amount of Tombow will make it attach quite nicely, and I won't get any of the adhesive on my underside here. And I'm just going to make it so that I know it's in the middle, left to right and top to bottom, and that it covers up that inside piece. Okay, and I'm just going to get my bone folder and just make sure it's fully adhered. Okay, so there's the base of our card. Now here, I've got a little bit of glue here, so I'm going to take my glue eraser and just wipe it off. And so the next thing we need are the little birds and my banner piece. And I've got my soft suede ink, because that matches the card on the front. And I've already mounted the 2 little birds, and I've got a tiny little scrap. You don't need much for these. No point using a big piece of paper. So I'm just going to make sure that they both stamp on here. And I'm leaving a little bit of space around them because I want to cut them out with the dies. And I don't want to be sort of cutting out with the dies and find that the next die isn't going to quite cut straight. And then I've just got my blender pen, and all I want to do is literally just go over the birds to give a little bit of colour on the wings. And it's best if you do this just after you've stamped, because as the ink dries, you don't get quite so much on the blender pen to play with. Can you see how it just lifts a little bit of that ink? I'm not using any other ink, only what's already on here. And when I do my Christmas cards, what I'll do is I'll just dip my blender pen on maybe the real red ink pad and just do the same, just colour this little part of the breast, but make the rest of it brown with the brown ink. Okay, so next what you need to do is just take these 2 dies, because they will cut your little birds out, and I have already cut those so that you don't have to watch me cutting things with a big shot. Okay, so here I've got my 2. I've also got these ones where I only took the blender pen over a tiny bit, so they're much paler, but I like these 2 darker ones better. So I'm going to put the one little bird up here, and I'm going to pop him on with a dimensional. It's not going in the mail, so I'm quite happy that I've got a couple of layers. It's not too bulky because I'm not posting it. Okay, so I'm going to stick one there, and I'm going to get another dimensional on the smaller one here. And I'm going to put this one at the right hand side so that it looks almost like they're sitting in their tree. Okay, and then when I was cutting the white card, I had some little strips like this that were left, and often I'll throw these little strips away, but I knew that the sentiment that I was going to use came from a different stamp set. It came from the Forever Blossoms, and I wanted this one, the You Mean So Much to Me. And actually, when you stamp that, it fits on these little tiny pieces. So sometimes, keep these pieces because you can do a sentiment on them. And I stamped this with the soft suede, and it's going to go through here. I want it just to go like this. Now I'm going to cut this edge off, but first I need to just banner this little end. So I've got my scissors, and I'm just going to leave myself a little space at the right hand side. I'm going to just make a little mark in the middle, and then I'm going to cut corner to corner. And just see. I'm just not quite sure how long I want this piece. I am going to pop this up on dimensionals as well. I wasn't sure if I was going to have some that overhung the edge here. Let's see, I think I'm going to chop it off about there, but I'm going to chop it off with my longer scissors to try and get it fairly straight. Let's see if I need to trim any more. I'm just going to trim a tiny bit, just a tiny bit. There, that's how much I want it doing. And I'm going to put dimensionals on the back. And I've got one of these long pieces available, so I'm going to take that off, put it along the whole of the sentiment. I'm going to put a little piece just on the end as well, just because I happen to have a little piece there. There. Okay, and then last of all, I wanted to put a little piece of Calypso coral ribbon on, but I don't have any. I looked through all my ribbons and I just don't have any that colour. So what I did was I took my crinkled seam binding and my, I think it's the light Calypso coral blender pen, and I just went over it. You have to leave it just a few minutes to dry as well. Don't try and stick it on a project straight away, because sometimes with your fingers being warm, the ink will come out either on your fingers or on your project. So I just coloured a little piece and I tied it in a bow. And I only made a teeny weeny bow, and I'm just going to get a glue dot. Let's stick this on here. Oops. Try and pop those little tails down. And I'm just going to put it just under here, just under this little bird at the right hand side. And there we are. Now, if you wanted to, what you could do is use your ribbon and you could attach a little piece under here so that it goes all the way, because this is glued down, I can't really show you, but it goes all the way under here, and then you could have it go around the back as well, and you could have it tied, And then when it's open, the ribbon would still be attached, but of course it would be undone. But I just wanted the one little bow at the bottom. Now I might add some bling. I might put some little little rhinestones on, or little pearls coloured in with the Calypso pen as well. But that's my very simple little anniversary card using birds and branches. So hop on over to my blog to find the sizings if you'd like to know exactly what sizings I used over here in North America. They will only be in inches. I don't tend to work in centimetres, so I do apologise if you're looking for centimetres. But thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you all again really, really soon. Bye-bye, everybody.